Is All India Radio Bangalore and Bhadravati. In the series Foreign Friends of India, we now bring you a talk by Sri R. Diwakar on Lord Mountbatten.
One of the greatest events in modern history, the attainment of complete independence of India, Mukumbal Azadi, happened 20 years ago. It was unique in many ways. At midnight on the 14th of August 1947, about one-fifth of the human race on that date, held down in utter subjection and exploitation for more than a century by the mightiest ever of empires, declared not only its own complete independence, but also its friendship with its ere-long ruthless rulers. On India's side, it was a fight without ill will, a victory without bloodshed, and peace without war. On the side of Britain, it was peaceful transfer of power in exchange for the friendship of a continental ancient nation. Both Britain and India can boast of mother civilizations. Their contact for decades, though bitter on account of the unhuman master-slave relationship, has enriched both in many ways and ended in equality of status and amicable relationship. Those of us who were present at the celebration of the first Independence Day in Delhi can recall with renewed interest the mighty figures who played distinguished roles in the great drama of those days. Among the foreign rulers, if Prime Minister Attlee took the bold and realistic decision to liquidate the empire against the will of the diehards like Winston Churchill, Lord Mountbatten carried out with swiftness and precision his mission of transferring power from British to Indian hands. Without Attlee's decision and full support, Mountbatten would have been helpless. But without a man of outstanding ability, tact, and executive power like that of Lord Mountbatten, the Indian problem would have deteriorated further and gone beyond repairs. The problem had already become almost insoluble and most complicated also on account of communal clashes of a most brutal and inhuman nature. It was the good fortune both for Britain and India that for solving the intricate problem of transfer of power, the office and choice fell on Mountbatten. He had the deep sympathy of a friend for the desperate patient on the table, but was also gifted with the kindly cruel skill of a surgeon. Lord Mountbatten, by his friendly approaches, thoughtful decisions, and quick action, established his reputation as a great statesman, earned the gratitude and goodwill of India and Pakistan, and built a bridge of friendship between two great peoples of Britain and India in spite of their past unhappy memories. Who was the greatest beneficiary by what Mountbatten did? The wise Chakravarti Rajagopalachari said, "Has not Lord Mountbatten then done greater service to Britain than Hastings and Clive? For this is the greatest service of all. In times to come, it will not be empires that count, but goodwill that counts. Therefore I say that he has done more for Britain than anyone else." There is no doubt that that ungrudging transfer of power was one of the greatest reconciliations of history. Can we not say today that like the quality of mercy which blesseth him that gives and him that takes, Gandhi's non-violent approach and method of satyagraha without ill will leads contending parties to an agreed and salutary solution. On the eve of the departure of Lord and Lady Mountbatten, on the occasion of the Delhi Corporation's tribute to them, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru exclaimed, "You came here, sir, with a high reputation. But many a high reputation has floundered here in India. You lived here through a period of difficulty and crisis, and yet your reputation has not floundered. That is a remarkable feat. I wondered how an Englishman and an Englishwoman became so popular in so short a time and won the love and affection of the people." Lady Mountbatten, no less than her remarkable husband, won the hearts of the people by the breathless and effective services she rendered in reaching help and succor to the refugees who were pouring in like an avalanche. It is easy to mend wounded bodies, but to console wounded and sundered hearts requires somewhat of a spiritual quality. Lady Mountbatten's energy and tact, and her ability to create confidence in the most depressed hearts will ever be remembered in India. Gandhi is now called the father of the nation, and his birth centenary is being observed not only in India but by the whole world. Lord Mountbatten, however, called Gandhi the architect of India's freedom. Both are great tributes, but the tribute of a statesman who represented the rulers and who de facto presided over the disappearance of His Majesty's Indian Empire is historically far more valuable and is very realistic too. Some time before assuming the reins of power in India, Mountbatten must have been surveying the Indian scene and assessing the facts, forces, and personalities involved. It speaks for his powers of right perception that he sought Gandhi as one of the first things after coming to India, and he continued to have friendly interviews with him to the last. He had the greatest regard and admiration for Gandhi's moral influence and his amazing instinct for mass communication of ideas. For instance, in connection with keeping peace in the midst of the wildest communal fury, Mountbatten wrote to Gandhi on 26/8/1947, "In the Punjab, we have 55,000 forces, but we have a one-man boundary force in Calcutta." That India should have chosen to retain Mountbatten as Governor General even after he relinquished his power as the last Viceroy of India proves not merely popularity, but also the confidence in him of the highest in the land, both about his ability, friendliness, and usefulness as the head of the state. Very recently, I had been to England. I sought the occasion to meet Lord Mountbatten at his London residence on 30th of June 1969. He is the chairman of the Gandhi Centenary Committee of the United Kingdom. I waited only for a moment in the drawing room. In walked Lord Mountbatten, the figure familiar to all of us in India who were in the Constituent Assembly in 1947. Except a bit of aging, he is now 69, which does not show itself, tall and erect, manly and stately. Strikingly handsome, Mountbatten shook my hands very warmly and made me feel quite at home. I reminded him of those days in India, and my companion, Devendra Gupta, showed him his photograph at Rajghat when he last visited Delhi quite recently. He was glad to autograph it, and we further felt an atmosphere of informality pervading all round. The whole of the past flashed in my mind, and event after event flicked across my eyes, right from the sad plight India was in 1946, the direct action day and all that. Lord Mountbatten was already a great figure in England's galaxy of distinguished persons. It was after a brilliant naval career and after filling the post of the Supreme Allied Command of Southeast Asia most successfully, 1943 to 1946, he was appointed as the Viceroy of India by the Labour government of Britain. The government announcement was made on 20th of February 1947, and he assumed charge on the 24th of March 1947. The deadline for transfer of power was June 1948. But the course of events was so rapid, and the speed with which Lord Mountbatten grasped the situation and took far-reaching decisions were so quick that within a few months of his arrival, two free nations emerged as a result of the partition. At this distance, one cannot even conceive how all those things happened with such lightning speed. Out of curiosity, I asked Mountbatten the other day as to whether we could have avoided partition, which has proved not only tragic, but a continuing source of anxiety as well as a heavy handicap for both countries in their march towards normal goals of progress. He frankly told me that he could do nothing about it, as the stage was already set and events had advanced too far. The logic of events and the force of circumstances, and above all, the psychological factors, had advanced so far that none could draw any other conclusion but partition. Gandhi, the most patient, humble, and yielding of negotiators, had failed, though he went to the last limit of conceding to Jinnah. Lord Mountbatten seemed to say that possibly in 1937 Congress could have been generous and taken the Muslim League people into their cabinets. The second occasion was, if Criff's offer had been accepted, partition could have been avoided. The third occasion was when Gandhi was willing to give power to Jinnah instead of agreeing to partition. But the Congress could not agree. Once it was decided that there was no other way but partition, Mountbatten set about his task with a clarity of purpose and a determination to achieve it, which none could contravene. When Mountbatten was assigned this difficult task, Lord Ismay characterized it as an explosive commitment. But by unparalleled concentration and intensity of effort, a formula was evolved by Mountbatten within 73 days of his stepping into India and persuaded parties to accept it. He did not think that he should wait for a calmer atmosphere to prevail. He persuaded Gandhi and Jinnah to issue a joint appeal on the 15th of April against all violence. The appeal denounced for all time the use of force to achieve political ends. Mountbatten went ahead with his plans in spite of rumblings and murmurings. He got the plan sanctioned by the British cabinet, and it became a reality on the 14th and 15th of August 1947 for both Pakistan and India respectively. But unfortunately, that was not the end of the matter. Jinnah was sore. Some Muslims felt that it was the last kick of the British. But the logic of Jinnah's attitude and the unwillingness of the Congress to concede a corridor brought about a partition within a partition. 800 miles of Indian territory stand today between the two wings of Pakistan. Then there was the question of accession of India's princely states. Mountbatten advised the states to accede either to India or to Pakistan. In spite of his advice, three states stood out: Hyderabad, Junagadh, and Kashmir. We know the fate of all of them. It was during Lord Mountbatten's regime as Governor General that Kashmir acceded to India when Jinnah took the ill-advised step of sending wild tribal raiders with Pakistan arms. But the most important problem was the one about refugees both ways. A caravan of 60 miles was on the move. 40% of the total Sikh population found itself in Pakistan, and it moved into India. Nowhere in the world was such a problem, and of so great a magnitude, and within so short a period, had to be handled at a time when other questions as serious were on hand. Lord Mountbatten was requested to preside over the emergency council of the cabinet, and he did. It is impossible to enumerate the many ways Lord Mountbatten served India and also Pakistan when he was here. He would have been far more useful if he had been allowed by Jinnah to be joint Governor General. But having first agreed, he chose to be Governor General of Pakistan himself. Mountbatten, if he had been joint Governor General, would have been able to establish some conventions salutary to both, but that was not to be. I cannot but mention here the significant part Mountbatten played at the time of the tragic passing away of Gandhi. He was very anxious that Nehru and Patel should come together. He knew the agony of the Mahatma in his last days, and he was happy when he saw Nehru and Patel embrace each other as a mark of their coming together. He felt happy when he saw that Nehru had got back his nerves, which he seemed to have lost for a time when he was stunned by the news of Gandhi's death. Even after departing from India, Lord Mountbatten has continued to take interest in the affairs of India and the development of democratic norms in this country. Rarely has there been another Britisher who did so much for India in so short a time and with such consummate skill and deep sympathy. He was and is and will continue to be a real friend of India.
You were listening to Sri R.R. Diwakar on Lord Mountbatten, a talk in the series Foreign Friends of India, broadcast from All India Radio Bangalore and Bhadravati.